Greetings and salutations, folks, and welcome to Super Double Dragon for the Super Nintendo for some reason. Yeah, this is a game that, I've always kind of wanted at a distance. Like, I never really played it back in its prime, and I've really only, before, today, I've only played it in the means of emulator. And I suppose before I really go on even farther, like, who is this handsome fellow beating up every street hooligan you see here? Why are they even fighting? Why are they even fighting? And now, like, the first thought is, like, this is a game that came out in the day, back when instruction manuals had the stories. And video games decided cutscenes they weren't important. We're just going to give you the story and the manual, and if you don't have the manual, well, yeah, you're just going to be punching people as you move from left to right. Although the thing is, Double Dragon games have famously had cutscenes in them prior to this game, starting from the original Double Dragon when Marion is kidnapped at the beginning of the game. And after looking around, apparently this game was supposed to have cutscenes. It was supposed to have dialogue in the middle of the game, as written in an article translated from the game director, Muneki Ebinuma. I'm going to link the article. It's in the description. But in short, it basically says that they just didn't have time. The game was rushed, and a lot of stuff had to be deleted and got left behind. And cutscenes happened to be one of them, which would have actually helped because there was a lot of deleted content that was the story. One such, if we actually look at the manual itself. The legend continues of the two greatest martial arts heroes of all time are back in an all-new adventure with awesome new moves, impossible new missions, and a hair-raising new cast of enemies. Marion, a beautiful policewoman. Also, by the way, Marion does not show up anywhere in this full version of the game. I believe that she supposedly, like, there's actually that there's art of her on the cartridge itself, but none of it is used. So the quest in regards to who you're fighting and why you're fighting, none of it is in here. Not even, there's no, like, ending cutscene or anything. So this version of Marion is apparently based on the American cartoon, which is kind of odd. Like, you'd expect a Japanese game to focus more about from their own from Double Dragon 1, 2, and 3, where she kind of like is a fellow, like, I don't know if she's a girlfriend to Billy and Jimmy, or Billy or Jimmy. Maybe she's dating both of them, or she's teaching at their dojo, or she's dead for a little while. The plot goes all over the place. So in this version, she is a policewoman, a student of Kung Fu, and a part-time assistant instructor at the martial arts training school run by Billy and Jimmy Lee. By the way, what I find kind of interesting in this game is that, like, there's an enemy in the game. Like, it's one of those... Oh, actually, before I go to that, you can see that the glass cracked on the right side of this elevator is just an example of how rushed this game was. Because apparently, supposedly, that glass was supposed to shatter, and it would probably have been really, really cool, but that got scrapped. But there's one of the enemy types basically is just a recolored Billy and Jimmy, which is interesting considering that Billy and Jimmy are just recolors of each other anyway. A narcotics investigator. She has disappeared while attempting to infiltrate the ruthless criminal mob known as the Black Shadow Warriors. It will take all of your incomparable fighting skill and knowledge to find and rescue Marion. Alone or with the help of your brother, you must face the fearsome onslaught of the Shadow Warriors with the fabled power and ferocity of the Double Dragon. So that's the setup. Which would have been nice to know before playing the game, but here I am. Now, one thing you'll notice in regards to the actual gameplay, it's a little bit more, it's more involved than its NES predecessors. You've got punches, you've got kicks, you've got a block button that I never figured out how to use properly. And then you also have like this charge ability. It increases your dragon power gauge, which allows you to use special techniques. Mostly I spend that time just, like, there's a couple basic techniques you can use with it, is just like a jumping front kick. And then there's also the ability to do like a backhand, and then if you hold it for longer, it becomes like a Ryu spinning kick. By the way, that guy in the suit, according to the manual, his name is Steve. You have to... Okay, so in this stage, because like not just having any knowledge of the story is one thing, but like, why are you even here? You enter the casino with a grand background of a night view of Las Vegas. Take the elevator to the top floor where you meet the boss of the casino, Steve. After fighting Steve, you can continue to the next mission. By the way, those knives, if you ever play the game and you see somebody holding a knife, get out of their way, or knock the knife out of their hand, because though a single knife will knock out like half of your health. The throwing knife in the enemy's hands is like one of the most dangerous weapons in the game. So now we're at the airport for some reason. This mission begins the lobby of the airport. As you move through the lobby, you'll find a door to go through. By the way, that's also another thing that got cut. Is apparently there was an animation that allowed the Lee brothers to actually walk through doors that was unused. The game just fades out. And actually, now that I noticed it just now, see that plane in the background? That is the end of the level, is actually right next to that plane. So I suppose I have to give them props to the design there. Eventually this takes you onto the runway of the airport. It is here that you meet the boss of this mission, Jackson. Defeat Jackson and then move on to the next mission. And, oh, yeah, there we go. The guy in the green vest over there. Basically just... He even has Billy's moves. He does the Ryu spinning kick, and everything. Like, they ran out of space or time to make one more enemy type. So they're like, let's just throw them in there. Now, like any good old video game, enemies, of course, have names and descriptions, which are terrible. Right now, I'm being punched a whole bunch of times by a Williams, who is apparently an expert at the martial art forms of Kenpo and Kunbo. Earlier you saw, like, there's an enemy with, like, 2 swords swinging around. That is a baker. He is a master of the Chinese sword. His best technique is the 2 swords. Yeah, the instruction manual leaves a little bit to be desired, especially in the description of the Double Dragons themselves. Like, it describes a very sunken-cheek Billy Lee as, like, one half of the Double Dragons. He began to learn the martial arts at the age of 12. He completed his art form of Sosetsuken at the age of 20. He and his brother have a training school in Los Angeles where they teach the art form of Sosetsuken. And yeah, that description is fine. Oh, by the way, this particular level, apparently there was supposed to be conveyor belts that led off screen to the left, I think. But they didn't. They apparently lost the code, and they just had to cancel that. Whoops. Maybe a little bit rushed. Never rush your game designers, because then you'll have unfinished games. And then, oh, by the way, it's kind of interesting because you can punch projectiles out of the air. And I have to admit, at this moment, I never tried to punch a knife out of the air. I don't necessarily feel like starting up the game just to find out whether I can, because it's generally easier to either avoid it or... I'm not all fancy moves there. Like, backing up and using that forward jump kick. It's one of those special techniques that uses the dragon gauge. It is a very convenient way of dealing with one enemy. Like, when you've got like and by dealing with it, I mean like having to fight him without actually fighting him. Because then you don't have to deal with blocking, you don't have to deal with counterattacks. Because there's one very, very specific counterattack that always gets me. Always gets me. And, oh, by the way, I have to talk about their double teaming that goes on throughout this entire game, but we'll get to that. And that is, enemies have a slide maneuver. Usually it's this guy in the vest. I believe he's one of the Williams. No, he is a roper. There's no description. There's nothing to describe who he is, except he is called a roper. I don't know what that means. But the roper and the Williams both have that sliding kick, and they could use it at pretty much any time. Which, oh, by the way, that's that's Billy's power face going on. When you fill up the dragon gauge to maximum, I guess like it goes to the point where like you don't want to make Billy angry. You won't like him when he's angry, because he has one disturbing looking face. Like his like O face is just very, very cartoonish. And now, as you can tell, Steve has become a regular opponent. And that's the thing. A lot of these bosses, they just become regular opponents. Of all of them. Except for, of course, the final one. And this is what I think makes this game particularly tricky, is you spend a lot of the game... You spend a lot of the game getting stunned by attacks. You spend a lot of the game getting double-teamed. It is very rare that you end up in a fight where you're not up against 2 or 3 bad guys. You defeat one bad guy, another guy comes in. Especially once we get to like the final fight of the game. In the final fight up against the Duke, who is apparently the boss of the game, and possibly a friend of Billy and Jimmy in a plot thread that got cut from the full release. like, even though the boss is there, the final boss is there, he's still being supplemented with regular goons. And they take a lot of hits. They take a lot of punches, and then they start blocking a lot, and then, like, as you're moving towards one, like, they're moving away, and the other guy is trying to close in on you, and then you're like, okay, maybe I'll switch and go to the one who's trying to close in on me. And then they back away, and then slowly get entrapped by these two bad guys until they're just, like, punching you from both sides. And it's like, okay, you gotta get out and do something. This, as you can see, is my fantastic, extremely cheap roundhouse. Is that a roundhouse kick? Nope, that's a jumping round kick, according to the manual. The roundhouse kick is the Ryu-esque spinning kick. Oh, I could have done a jumping back round kick. I did not realize that was even possible. So, that's... It's like, how many jump kicks does it take to take down one guy? And you notice how that guy just kind of threw his grenade, and then, see, that's the slide I'm talking about. Like, there's no warning, there's no, like, preemptive appearance, like, there's no motion that characters do before sliding, and, like, characters slide even while they're not standing next to you. So it's a very, very difficult move to predict, to the point in which it's almost as, like, for me, it feels as though the slide attack is damage that you just have to accept. Like, you're getting slid into, deal with it. Yep, and there we go. So there was no options at the beginning of the game for, like, extra lives or difficulty. It's just one player and then two versions of two-player. And you get 5 credits, each credit 3 lives. I actually, it took me 2 tries to beat the game. The first try, I managed to get all the way up to Duke, and I managed to do that and I had, like, no credits left. I had 2 lives left. It did not work out. This time, it was a lot better, although definitely my thumbs have suffered from this fight. This guy you see here, this would be the boxer guy. His name is Jackson. In the past, he was a heavyweight boxing champion. His jab and uppercut are awesome. His best technique is the uppercut. And he does have... his uppercut is pretty nice. Oh, apparently, so after you defeat Jackson here, the plane just takes off. It just flies away. Apparently, the Lee brothers were supposed to actually get on the plane via cutscene. But, yep, there it goes. I was kind of confused as to what happened, but nope. Straight to Mission 3 and Classic. Double Dragon music. See that guy with the nunchucks? Nobody else in this fight matters right now except getting those nunchucks. Like, I had a wooden staff earlier today, but apparently both, like, the wooden staff is Jimmy's weapon. The nunchucks are Billy's weapon. I haven't seen Jimmy's weapon with the nunchucks because I'd have to play 2-player to find out. Or Jimmy with the wooden staff. But once Billy gets the nunchucks, Like, he's nearly unstoppable. Like, enemies can't block his attacks anymore. They just fall to him. Like, once Billy gets the nunchucks, it's not it's no Sensuken style. It's just Billy Lee and the Legend of the Nunchuck Master. And there really is no reason to use any other attacks if there is a nunchuck present. So anyway, now that I'm done talking about how awesome nunchucks are, by the way, you lose the nunchucks when you go to the next scene. And they're gone. So long, beautiful nunchucks. You were too good for this world. Stage 3 Chinatown. So, according to the manual, let's see. You begin this mission on the streets of Chinatown, in the shopping district. From here, you enter a Kung Fu training school gymnasium. Go upstairs to the 3rd floor, and there you must fight the 2 Chin brothers. As the fight progresses, the Chins run away to the balcony. There you defeat the Chins and proceed to the next mission. Apparently this also refers to other content that was cut from the final game, as the Chin brothers called themselves the real Double Dragon brothers. Like, they were the true Double Dragons. Their names being... Let's see if I can find them for you. Chin Ron Fu and Chin Ron Pyo. I don't know if that's horribly racist. But these are the Japanese we're talking about, so quite possibly. And they called themselves the real Double Dragon Brothers. And there was supposed to be dialogue in which they would actually tell you that we are the Double Dragons from Chinatown, Chen Long Fu and Chen Long Biao. Oh, that's actually a completely different name. And you would prove yourself to be the Double Dragons, but the fight would actually only take place inside the dojo, rather than on the balcony. As the the instruction manual says, the fight takes place both in the dojo and outside the balcony. By the way, like, they've got this punching bag you can punch, and it swings, and it might hit enemies. This game has some interesting combat mechanics in regards to, like, alternate ways to hit enemies. There's this punching bag, there was that other speedball in the other room. But there is a certain, like, that guy who just rolled to the right there, because of Billy's uppercut. While he's rolling, he can actually damage opponents that he passes by, which is a little odd. It's unexpected. It fits. I think it fits this game's kind of like realistic. Quote, realistic, unquote, speed. Okay, so one thing I noticed while playing the game is there's a certain, I don't know if, I don't want to jump to conclusion, but sluggish quality to the game. It's not that fast. Like, you look at his animation of, like, falling to the ground, it's a very slow, like, pum, pum. The actual movement is fairly slow. But like, I feel that the actual, like, danger of being in combat is fairly high. Like, any of these ordinary enemies can ruin your day. There are plenty of beat-em-ups, like Streets of Rage, Final Fight, in which the bad guys you fight are very plentiful in supply. The Punisher, the arcade game, has some of my favorite sequences in which you're just blasting away regular goons. Oh, by the way, I guess this is one of the two brothers. And if you'll notice, okay, so during this playthrough, I didn't really use any that many kicks. I think I try to vary it up towards the end because you need some variety. But if you try to kick him, he actually does have a counterattack move for a regular standing kick, in which he grabs you, your leg, and then just spins you around and knocks you on the floor. So, with the first brother, Shin Ron Fu, he is the best Chinese Kenpo master in the Shadow Warriors. He operates Duke's Kenpo gyms with his brother in Chinatown. He claims that he and his brother are the real double dragons. And now if Billy had his O face there for a moment. Like, sometimes with certain enemies, it can be tricky to get into combos. I don't think I tried very much with this specific guy, but, like, there's, like, a hit-and-run tactic to, like, doing a lot of jump kicks, powering up your dragon gauge to maximum so that Billy's got his crazy face going on, in which case his basic attacks are more super-powered. They always knock guys to the floor with just one punch or one kick. They can still be blocked, which is something that you have to pay attention to. If you punch a guy and he blocks it and you don't pay attention, or you just miss and you don't pay attention, and you just start taking punches to the gut. That said, because of the way that enemies follow you, it's very easy to just build up your dragon gauge again by just simply moving up and down. Enemies will not even attack you. And now that we've jumped down to this second level of the pagoda, I guess is this called? Dojo, is Chinron Pyo. He wields a variety of hand-to-hand combat techniques. He has a severe scar over his eye that he suffered from a past death match. So I guess this is him? It's hard to tell if they even had two different sprites for that character. And yeah, like, this fight was only supposed to take place, inside the pagoda, on the top floor. So it would have been the result of climbing all the way to the top, rather than, just kind of working where you're at the top and then dropping down on the outside for some reason. Now, like, his moves are, aside from the fact that he can block a lot of your attacks most of the time, his moves are terrible in really short range, so it's hard to really consider him that much of a threat. And then you just jump onto a truck. Which leads to kind of, it's an interesting fight. You're on this truck going by this pretty cool scenery in the background. See this guy just slid out of an, oh. And that's always, like, their knives are so damaging that just a single thrown knife by one enemy can kill another enemy. I believe in this playthrough I managed to make it through the whole game getting hit once by an enemy's knife. I knock a few of them out of their hands, I pick them up and I waste a couple of them, but in my opinion, the important part isn't how you use the knife. The important part is stopping them from using theirs. I should also note that since I'm on a truck, I can fall off the bottom of the truck. I did not realize that at the time because you can't fall off the sides. Apparently, the original idea for the game is like you would have still been able to fall off the side of the truck. And also, there was going to be a lot more storytelling here. Marion would have shown up in her patrol car. She would be attacked by the group, and then kidnapped. And that's when she gets kidnapped by Duke. And that's also when Billy can... Oh, there I go. It's okay. I've still got 3 credits left after this. More than enough to kill anything that moves. Actually, that would have been better if it was 6. So, like, there would have been a conversation between Billy and and Duke, the boss of the game. But all cutscenes are gone, so whatever their relationship was is relegated to the concept art, the making of floor, the design documents. According to the instruction manual, what goes on in this mission, here you find yourself... Oh! Yeah, the truck just crashes, and Billy gets launched off of it, and you can see Steve, Duke, who's that other guy? Carlum? And McGuire both just walked away. And you're like, who are these interesting group of characters that I'm not fighting right now? And you can actually start, like, at one point in my first attempt, I started punching McGuire's character, and he does fight with you, but eventually his programming leads him off screen. After falling, so yeah, the trailer goes through a residential district, a forest, over a bridge, more residential, and then the trailer collides with the side of a large building. After falling down the street, you begin to fight with the boss, McGuire, which didn't happen because he just walked away. As this is happening, the gangsters of the Shadow Warriors are watching. In this scene, however, you will not be able to beat McGuire, and the mission will end. And he walked away, so that definitely limits what kind of damage you can do to McGuire. One second while I see if there's a name for, like, the Billy Resprite. Let's see. That might be according to the manual, there's a character named Jeff. The supervisor of the Shadow Warriors, he is a karate master. He likes to play mean tricks. That dirty Jeff. Why? But there's no image in the manual to kind of guarantee that claim, so I'm just guessing because there's only so many other bad guys to fight. And now we have arrived to Mission 5, and now we've got the music that played during Mission 2, the classic Double Dragon theme. By the way, if you notice, whenever I get somebody in a head grab, you have the ability to kick people behind you, and because there's always people behind you, there's always a good chance that if you at least try, you might be able to hit them. And so that's why anytime you see me with, like, a guy in a headlock, I tend to do that back kick just in case. Because you never know, and it's best to be safe than sorry. The problem with doing that is that extends the time in which you've got somebody in that head grab, and enemies just kind of stand there and do nothing. Yeah, I missed that throw. Didn't work out quite so well. Like, enemies just stand there for a short moment while you've got an enemy in a head grab and do nothing. And then they realize, oh, wait, we should be punching this guy in the face. And then they decide, oh, we're going to start punching you now. And that's the thing with this game, especially when you're fighting people like 1-on-2, one on each side, is like enemies don't wait their turn to fight you. They'll step in and they'll punch you in the back. They'll trip you up. So that's why it's constantly moving around. There's one thing that I tend to do is that I tend to not just mash like a punch button when fighting guys, especially in those situations. I tend to kind of follow them back. Oop, nunchucks. Like once the nunchucks appear, the rest of the level, or the rest of this specific area of the level, it's done. Like, these bad guys just don't stand a chance. So anyway, while Billy's just smashing face with a nunchuck, Mission 5, The Slums. This mission will take you through an old building into an abandoned factory. Here you meet again with McGuire to fight him and defeat him. Why this large clown is named McGuire, why any of these people are named what they're named, is mysterious. Is very mysterious to me. Although I would say Double Dragon names themselves are kind of odd. Like, what kind of a name is a Bobo? Or Williams, to refer to a single character. Let's see. So apparently, McGuire was supposed to actually... You would fight him, and then he would escape. Which would have made more sense from a storyline perspective, because you do fight him again right before the final boss. But no, you just defeat him here and then you defeat him again. And that's something that you could easily like look at the game and say that it's just a thing of old school games, because that's what old school games did. They were like, hey, we're gonna give you a few bosses, but right before the final boss, you're gonna have to fight all of them again. And now that I've moved on to the next area, I've lost the nunchucks, and now the path leads down to the final fight in this mission. With McGuire himself. Oh my. And okay, that was something I forgot about. I think I was going to talk about it, and then I forgot about it. Like, notice how he just kind of threw his knife right then and there, and just took out his own partner. I noticed that some enemies, like, I think they kind of function in, like, when you're holding a weapon, you can punch, and the punch attack just uses the weapon, and you just regularly kick. So consider that a binary approach to fighting. You can punch, you have your punch button, and you have your kick button. You can use one or the... Also, McGuire has a multicolored Blanca ball. You have your punch and your kick. While you have the weapon, that weapon replaces the punch. Now, let's say you're holding a throwing weapon. You would kind of like wait until somebody comes in line with you, and then throw the weapon. I feel as though the enemies of this game do not differentiate between the weapons they hold in their hands and their regular attacks. Which is why, like, a regular bad guy will just throw a knife at nothing. Or throw a knife at his own enemy, because, his code says, we want you to just punch right now. And there's no actual way to punch. Because he's got a weapon, and then he uses his weapon and he's done. But enough talking about that one guy who threw that one knife against that other guy. For some reason, I'm fighting a fat clown. A really muscular. Like, look at those biceps. Those triceps. In between Big Macs, he lifts weights just so his arms are super buff. So that is Maguire. A very large enemy. It is very difficult. In fact, almost impossible to damage this enemy. And now, something you notice me doing? Oh yeah, that leads. I started talking about that and forgot about it. Is I'll kind of prod him, and then move away. And then I'll prod him again, and then move away. Normally, in most beat-em-ups, if you want to do a 3-punch combo, you punch them 3 times. If you punch an individual time, the next time you punch, you're starting from the beginning of the 3-punch combo. I have fond memories of using just the individual punch in Streets of Rage or Streets of Rage 2. I didn't really play much of Streets of Rage 3. From Blaze, which is kind of like a sweeping swipe that comes up to the face, kind of like a diagonal upward moving chop. And that's usually tends to be a decent way to kind of stun enemies. Whereas in this game, as long as your punches are relatively close together, let's see if I can actually if there's a point where I actually do this. Also, it's kind of interesting that when enemies bunch up, it's easier to actually fight them. Fight a single enemy and they're more likely to block. Fight a group of enemies who are bunched up together, and they'll just take it. But let's say I'm fighting 2 guys, one on each side. Oh, by the way, you can actually knock people off the side of that ledge over there. And you're worried about I forgot that you can just punch a boulder out of the air. And you got 2 guys coming at you on each side. If you stop to punch, that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna trip you up, and attack you. Do a jump forward attack. So if you move forward, if you punch, then move forward, then punch again, then move forward, and then punch again, that becomes the 3-punch combo. Which normally wouldn't work in most games because you would usually just reset back to that first strike, rather than continue that combo. Which, I don't know if it's just, if that was more a programming error on their part, or something they kind of, they gave generous timing for your combos, because it definitely helps. Especially since that second hit, the first hit is nice to introduce damage. The second hit stuns. Oh, and sometimes invisible walls show up, like the one that just saved that knife from going on to infinity. And that knife makes a very metallic noise as it lands on dirt. But it's really tough. Anyway, we haven't talked anything about the stage we're in right now, so let us go straight to that. Mission 6, Forest and Mountain. And that's the thing, Double Dragon games, I think the intent of this game was to kind of go back to to the original. So there's the city streets, there's the forest and mountain, which is this now. And that's what like Double Dragon 1 had a lot of. First, you pass through a forest of big trees. Definitely not Douglas firs. You'll cross a bridge and go over mountain roads to a pond where you meet the boss, Carlum, the gatekeeper of Duke's Palace. Fight it out with him, and you can find the gate that leads to Duke's house. By the way, you never, like, the pond never shows up in the game. Like, there's the stuff that, from the document, translated from Muneki, that shows things that were cut from the game. This pond that's described in the instruction manual never shows up. The fight ends up being on the bridge. And I think that might also be something else that just showcases just how rushed this game was. And apparently, like, this bridge was actually supposed to break apart. And you'd, like, do, like, a fall down a waterfall. Kind of similar to how, like, in the X-Men arcade game, when Magneto shows up and Magneto's all like, I am Magneto. No, that's the end of the game. He says, X-Men, welcome to die! And then breaks apart the earth below you, and you fall to your, not your deaths, but to more bad guys. And now we have Carlum, who looks kind of like just a mustached Arnold Schwarzenegger from the first Terminator movie. Like, he's got that long trench coat going on. Or maybe I'm confusing him with Kyle Reese, again, from the first Terminator. Like, if Arnold from Terminator 1 put on Kyle Reese's trench coat, and it was also a vibrant red rather than brown. But let's look at his description here. Who is Carlum, the boss of the Shadow Warriors? According to the manual, very little is known about Carlum. His fighting technique is similar to karate. He has a special technique, middle kick, called Death Leg, that is very fast and powerful. I don't think I actually gave him a chance to use it. Whatever the middle kick was, I guess you're gonna have to get the game and hope he uses it on you. But the name of the game isn't to get hit. It's to beat these guys up and make my way to the final boss. And then, of course, gotta be cheap. Because sometimes, that's the thing, like, when it comes to, like, trickier games, like more difficult games, like, it's not just about like being stylish, it's about being safe. And now we've got the finale, Mission 7. A little bit of odd music. I don't know. It feels like it's kind of out of like a 1960s, 70s spy movie. What is this level called? Duke's House. Here you will face your final challenge. You will need to use a barrage of fighting techniques to battle your way through to Duke and rescue Marion. As mentioned before, she never shows up. So it gives this game a very like a stripped down appeal. Like a bare bones Double Dragon. It removes all the extra features and just presents to you a Double Dragon game, and that's it. Which, like, reading Muneki's document, translated for Game Kommander, it's in the description. Also, yeah, they're the fake Double Dragon brothers again, and now that they're side by side, it appears that they look identical. So they don't even have like different sprite colors. Like if one was orange and the other one was yellow, then that might have been a little bit more interesting. Also, now that I'm like watching this, by the way, I recorded this in post because I figured if I tried to speak while playing this game, it would be horrible, unintelligible. It would be awful for everybody. But that sound in the music, like that repeats so often on a loop that like it's getting a little bit on the tiring side. I don't think I paid attention to it at the time while playing this level because it's like guys are coming at you left and right. Though I spent most of my time doing one of two things, other than trying to avoid damage and punch goons, is try to pay attention to my health meter and that flashing credit equals 3 button. Because like now I'm all the way at the end of the game and I still have 3 credits left after I inevitably lose this life because I'm almost out of health. So that means I've got another 9 lives to go just on this level alone. So I was feeling pretty confident, I gotta say. It's not the easiest game, and that's, well, Double Dragon games generally aren't easy. With the exception of Double Dragon Neon, which is challenging enough, but if you're looking for difficulty in that game, you're gonna find it in the post game, not in the main game itself. Especially if you start leveling up your characters. Once you start leveling up your characters, leveling up your cassette tapes, that game becomes the main like game set on normal becomes a walk in the park. This game is difficult. But once you start to compensate for like the enemy's movement, once you start figuring out the rhythm of the combat, it's not terribly difficult. Especially, and I think the proof in that is the fact that it did only take me 2 tries to beat it, and that first try was so close, but it wasn't quite there. And now this floor is an elevator that moves in like every direction. And it would look like you should be able to knock guys off the sides, but that doesn't work. Apparently, it wasn't supposed to have invisible walls, but it does. Apparently there was also some other maneuvers you're supposed to do to get off the elevator, but that doesn't really show up. Why this elevator, like, there's an elevator that just moves all over the place in this weird underground facility. Like this isn't as a house anymore. This is a facility, a combat dojo facility for producing martial artists. And that the idea of like an elevator that moves on an angle was kind of like a joke between me and a few of my friends back in the day, because you know your game isn't cool unless it has a elevated platform that moves on an angle, preferably down, and it's very like cinematic. Like consider in Metal Gear Solid 1, for instance. There is the platform that Snake uses to go to the ending of the game, and it allows him to travel between the areas where he heats the key and freezes the key. That platform. Castle Crashers has that same sort of platform fight. There's more examples I just don't remember off the top of my head right now. Now, I think I'm going to focus a little bit more on like what was cut from the final battle and the ending before kind of going into my thoughts on the game. That way, like that can occupy the last section of this playthrough. So apparently, like, there was supposed to be a callback to, see how far that knife had to go before it clattered against a wall? Like, after you defeat Duke, his shadow would emerge, and then you would chase his shadow and battle his shadow, similar to how in Double Dragon 2, Billy had to fight his own shadow. But by defeating Duke's shadow, that also killed Duke, and Duke was, in storyline purposes, was supposed to be your friend. Which I suppose would have been an interesting climax, like a more dramatic climax to the game than just another new guy appears and you fight him. Like, and there's that clattering again. Like, it feels like the knife has to travel so far before it hits whatever invisible wall is there. And now we've got Maguire back for his final battle, trotted out. Once again, okay, it's much clearer, especially when fighting him, because he has counterattacks. He has his spin to win, so to speak. So the safest way to like attack guys that block a lot, that counterattack a lot, well, for the ones that block a lot, like this guy on the left, I tend to, like, okay, if I notice he's blocking, then I'll step away and do something else. If he's not blocking, lay it on him. But with Maguire, it's easier to kind of like just kind of test him. If the first punch succeeds, or the second one goes, you can just follow through. But a lot of the times, it's just kind of maneuvering around. Unless an enemy is just like here. Especially, you can kind of trap him in this off-screen purgatory until he is eventually defeated. So, okay. While Billy's eventually going to defeat Maguire, so apparently after defeating Duke, like, Duke's body is meant to look peaceful. I think the intention there is that maybe, like, Duke was your old friend and was is now controlled by the shadow inside of him. And by defeating his inner darkness, you have freed him from that. Also, guy with knife. Always got to deal with those guys. Now, you see those doors in the background? It looks like they should open up, right? Or you should go inside them. Yeah, that doesn't happen. This is the final screen of the game. And that music loop is just so short. So yeah, you're able to save Marion, defeat the bad guy, defeat the shadow of the bad guy, save the day. But none of that actually made it in the game. Which is kind of disappointing because, like, reading about what this game could have been, like, oh, and now we've got Carlin back because everybody needs to be trotted right back out. Like, reading about what this game could have been, like, it feels as though this could have been like a resurgence of Double Dragon. Instead, what happens to Double Dragon after after that game came out. For the series, this is about the series. So there was, yeah, Super Double Dragon was 1994. Double Dragon and the Neo Geo was 95. Then there was nothing until 2003 with Double Dragon Advance. And then nothing until 2012 with Double Dragon Neon. And then Double Dragon Neon was... Actually, there might have been some more. The list I'm looking at might be a little bit truncated. Yeah, that's kind of leaving out the... Now, the Atari Lynx was 93. 2011 had the Double Dragon iOS port, which I actually played on this channel. But yeah, like, if this game was... had all of those cut features. Like, I think it would have been pretty awesome. And probably might have even kind of inspired a sequel. But, like, not only is this kind of like a very, a very cut version of the game, you have no storyline, you have no explanation of why you're in either levels, you're just running around punching dudes. Also, this is a game with no arcade version. Unlike previous Double Dragons, this only existed as a home game. I don't know how much publicity this game actually got when it came out. But like I said, I didn't actually play it until after I had the Super Nintendo was dead. I played it for the first time in ROM form. It's only now that I'm kind of playing it for the first time with a cartridge. So, like, just on one hand, thinking about what the game could have been, creates this kind of, like, idealized image of, like, what could have been an awesome game. But we can't really rate things for based on what they could have been. See how that guy just threw his knife at nothing? That's what makes me feel like they have the need, or they're compelled to get rid of the knife in their hand. Because they want to use their attack, and they just don't know what to do with it. They don't know timing, or like what would be a good placement for it. But actually, before I finish off with the little review, Duke, the dictator, he owns several martial arts gyms, but most of them were taken by force. His background is a mystery. That line, that reads terribly, because it sounds like his martial arts gyms were taken away from him by force. I might be reading too much into that. So, review of this game. Overall, I would say that I enjoyed it well enough. If I had to give it like a quality, like it's average. It's okay at best. At worst, fairly mediocre. Like, there's nothing it does that really I don't think it's one of those games that inspires like multiple playthroughs. I suppose it might be interesting to try out 2-player. See if enemy count is affected. Because that's one of the things that makes this game especially challenging, is you're constantly double-teamed. So if you have a second player going along, helping you out, then that might reduce that risk. Also, it would be curious to see if... also, that move from Duke is pretty cool. He actually does... Duke has a few really cool moves. And he also has a really cool stance, like a fighting stance where he kind of like holds out his hand, his left hand in front of him, and it kind of looks like an open palm. But I think when I'm trying to fight him, like especially since the other goons have been dealt with, I try to focus on just filling up that gauge and doing those single power attacks. Because he just starts blocking a lot of your hits. So anyway, yeah. So the game is okay. As a beat 'em up, as the gameplay I think does interesting things, moving the beat 'em up genre forward, and that's something like beat 'em up games have always had trouble with. Is when you move from say. Let's say when you move from, say, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, what is the difference? Turtles in Time has a few more of, like, the, like, hoverboard sequences where you're floating around, but the actual, like, play of the game is very, like, nothing really has changed. And there goes Duke. Whereas this game, like, it offers in more complex moves. It doesn't try to, like, force you to do, like, oh, here we go. After Duke and the Shadow Warriors were eliminated from the town, Billy and Jimmy have not been seen. But their heroics will live on forever as the legend of the Double Dragons. Possessive. Apostrophe next to the S, as in it's a legend that is owned by the Double Dragon. Okay, so anyway. So, like, apparently there's a discussion that's mentioned, about how, like, the fighting in the game could have easily gone in a more, like, Final Fight-esque manner. This is from Double Dragon Advance, but try to keep simpler and more towards the roots of the game, of Double Dragon. And I think this game accomplishes that as well, in which case, like, you've got your basic attacks, you've got a whole set of basic attacks, but it's how you use them that especially counts. It just would have been nice to know, like, what was going on the whole time. Have a decent storyline to go along with it. Maybe even alternate characters. But at that point, I'd be asking possibly a little bit too much. Thank you for watching. Questions, comments, recommendations for something to play next? Comment down below or send it on over to itsoundedgoodonpaper@gmail.com. That's itsoundedgoodonpaper@gmail.com. So long for now.